Hello and welcome to Inside Germany. My guest today is the first ever female French horn player to have made it into the revered Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. Sarah Willis is British and she's actually lived in Berlin since 1991 when she joined another orchestra here, the Staatskapelle. That's the State Opera Company's orchestra under the baton of maestro Daniel Barenboim. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robin.
Let's start with that, actually. You have played under the batons of two of the greatest conductors of our time, who are both here in Berlin, Daniel Barenboim, as I mentioned, and Sir Simon Rattle. So how do they compare? What are they like?
Well, that's a difficult question to say how they compare, because the best thing about classical music, about any sort of music, is that no two people are the same, no two pieces are the same, and Maestro Barenboim and Sir Simon are so totally different musicians. They're both utter geniuses, and I've learned so much from both of them that they're practically incomparable. I'm very grateful to Maestro Barenboim because that was my first job in the Staatskapelle. It was a difficult time for me in Berlin. It was just after the wall had come down. I was the first Westerner to join the orchestra. Nobody spoke English, so he would always do the rehearsals in his best German, but he would speak English to me, so I was grateful for that. But
in the rehearsals, he would do everything in German, and then just you were the only English person.
I was the first Westerner, the only English person, and I imagined at the beginning they must have thought I'd come from Mars, because there was this little English girl with a French horn, which was also not terribly usual in those days, to have a girl playing the French horn, and I had to learn German pretty quickly. But Barenboim was fantastic, and I learned so many fantastic operas with him, and the whole Ring cycle of Wagner, and then my favourite moments were when he would play Beethoven at the piano and conduct from the piano. And then moving on to Sir Simon, it's been the last 10 years with him, it's been a musical roller coaster. It's fantastic. We've been learning so many new pieces. He brings lots of new stuff to the Berlin Philharmonic, lots of crazy stuff.
And he rehearses in English, maybe?
Actually, now he rehearses in German.
Oh, does he?
Yes, his German is so much better.
Yeah.
His best jokes are still in English, though.
OK. Now, I mentioned you're the first female horn player. You're actually the first female member of the brass section of the Berlin Philharmonic. Why do you think this is?
Well, brass playing was a bit of a man's world originally, and when I was asked what I wanted to play, I needed a second instrument. In London, if you want to study at one of the music colleges, you need two instruments. And I play the piano quite well, so I thought I'd study a second instrument, and I said, what could I study? And they said, how about the flute or the clarinet or oboe? Nothing against those instruments, but they just weren't really my thing. And the teacher said, well, we have a French horn, but actually only boys play the French horn. And I thought, well, I want to try that.
Yeah.
I wanted to be something a little bit different. So I tried the French horn, and I was really one of the only girls learning in those days, but things have changed so much. And if you look at all the conservatories around the world, it's full of fantastic young female brass players. So I'm the first girl in the Berlin Phil brass section, but I'm certainly not the last. OK. Now, you've brought your French horn with you, and I wonder if you'd pick it up and show us now, because I know the way you hold it, you have your hand in the bell. I do.
But that's not the reason that the hand is in the bell, or is it?
When we do a lot of education projects, and we go to the kindergartens and the schools, and that's actually one of the first questions. Why do you put your hand up the bell? So well done.
I'm a little child.
Well done. Well, firstly, of course, if we didn't put our hand in the bell, it would be like this. And in the old days, the horn was a hunting instrument, and they would have to sit on the horses or whatever they were hunting on and play it like this. So they would hold it up like that, and they'd have to hold it still because I guess on the horses, I can't imagine playing the horn on a horse. But to make the sound a bit better, that sounds quite raw. If you listen, it's okay.
Yeah.
But if you put your hand in it and cup it a little bit, I hope this is going to sound better. It's just a little purer sound.
Okay.
And the other reason is that in the old days, we didn't have all these tubing bits and we didn't have the valves. We just could get the harmonic series, which was just a certain number of notes in the same key. And they realized that they could start changing the notes with the hand. So you could go... Now we can go.
Okay.
But in the old days, they used to do it with the hand.
Yeah.
So that was a good question. The other question the kids always want to know is, what are you always blowing out of the horn? Is that spit? And I'd like to say on the record, it's not spit. Well, not only anyway, it's condensed water, because you blow cold air, hot air down cold tubing, and then a bit of condensed water comes out. So.
We've got that. I just wanted to show now another use of the French horn. A picture you sent to us of this.
Yeah.
Is he a little monkey?
He's a little monkey. He's a little baby monkey at the Berlin Zoo. And when my photographer friend Monica, she does the most incredible photos, and I said to her, we can't use that one. I've got so many wrinkles. And she said, well, look at the monkey. He's got more than you.
Okay. Well, anyway, we know that the bell of the horn changes the sound of the instrument. We also know it's a great place for small animals to sit in, and it's not just small animals that like the bells of French horns. And my guest is Sarah Willis here on Insight Germany. What do you think they make of that?
Well, when I had apples in my horn, they were quite interested in the apples. But when I suggested I play for them, the keepers at the zoo actually made me leave the enclosure, because, as you saw, they have a little baby there, and those are the ladies. Those are the 4 ladies. Yeah. And they're very protective of this baby, and they were afraid that my horn player might sound like an enemy elephant. Oh, wow. So they weren't quite sure how they'd react, so they made me play from outside. But they all came up and they trumpeted back at me.
Yeah. OK, yeah, well, we saw that, yeah. Now, I said at the beginning of this show you're British, and you have a British accent, but you weren't actually born in Britain, were you? And I believe you hold 2 passports.
That's right. I've got a passport and a passport, because I was born in America. We've got a map, I think, of where you were born. I'm glad you have. I don't really remember it at all.
Bethesda in Maryland, indeed, yeah. So you have a passport and a passport?
Yes. My father was naturalised American. He was actually born in Australia. It's very complicated. But when I was born, he was an American citizen. My mum's British, so I was lucky to have 2 passports.
And was it a musical family?
My grandmother on my father's side was a concert pianist, but she lived in Australia, so we didn't really know her that well. My father was a foreign correspondent, and my mother is a ballet critic, so there's a bit of music in there somewhere. But we love to perform as kids. We were always making up concerts and plays and all sorts of things. So the love of performing was always there. Yeah.
And you settled eventually in London when you were 13, I think. That's right. And is that where you really sort of took on the music? Seriously,
that's when it started. I remember there was a moment in Moscow. We lived in Moscow before that. Dad was posted in Moscow, and we were there for 5 years. And I remember visiting the Bolshoi Theatre quite a lot because of my mother's ballet connections. And we went to the Moscow Conservatory and heard Sviatoslav Richter playing the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto. And I was so blown away by this. I swore to myself that that's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to play that concerto. I've played it on the horn in the orchestra. I haven't managed it on the piano yet.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky. Yes. that's quite another picture.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, hey, you're the front cover of a French magazine.
Yes, I am very honoured to have that. Le Grand Dame du Corps. Well, yes, that was me at age 14. I'd been sent outside to practice while we were on holiday in Shropshire because I was making such a racket. OK, now, I actually did show that picture because I wanted to show something else, because you are in the latest edition of Vogue magazine, no less, the German Vogue magazine. A huge honour. Show this up to the camera. A huge honour. When the company that makes our horns, Musik Alexander, when they saw that photo, they said, "Oh, it's such a wonderful photo." And I thought, oh, how nice. They said, "The horn looks so great." I thought, well, thank you. Hey, come on, you made it into Vogue. I know, it's a really big honour. We still can't quite believe it. Now, you studied at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, where I also studied, actually, and you were on a performers course. Did you have a backup plan if it didn't work out as a performer? I had absolutely no backup plan whatsoever. Do you remember at school when we had to go to these careers lessons? Did you have careers lessons? Yeah. Well, we had somebody coming in at school telling us about what it's like to be a policeman or a bus driver or a scientist. I never went. I went to practice. And I got in terrible trouble for this. And they said, well, what are you going to do later if you can't be a horn player? And I said, but I'm going to be a horn player. And for me, there was absolutely no doubt. But once I got to college, to music college, I was suddenly out of my comfort zone. I'd always been the best little horn player in my area.
I know that one.
Yeah.
I was the best singer.
Yeah, and then you get to college.
Then there were lots of them. Yeah.
And there's so many around you, and my confidence just went down. And that's when I thought, oh, I don't have a backup plan. But then you came to Berlin before you were, after college. Why, and why did you come to Berlin? Because you hadn't actually got the job in the Staatskapelle. No, not yet. I'd gone on a little chamber orchestra tour while the wall was still there, and we played at the Hebel Theater, the Hebel Theater. We played a little opera by Hense, and one night members of the Berlin Philharmonic had come to the performance, and they'd been so blown away by the performance that they invited us to the rehearsal the next day in the Philharmonie. So we all got up really early and went to the Philharmonie and sat there. And this was while I was in my third year of music college. And I heard this orchestra play live for the first time, and I just thought, that is the sound I've been looking for. I have to be as close to this orchestra as I possibly can. And in the break, we were so brave, we went backstage and found some of the horn players, one of which was Fergus McWilliam, who is now my colleague, the second horn player of the Berlin Phil. And I heard these, it was like an out-of-body experience. I heard myself saying, could I come and study with you? And the other horn player was digging me in the ribs, sort of saying, don't be so cheeky. But for some reason, it was just the right thing to do. And I went and had some lessons with him, got a scholarship in London, a Countess of Munster scholarship that paid for me to go over. And eventually there was the job free in the Staatsoper, and Fergus said, go for it.
Yeah, and you said earlier that you were the first Westerner in the Staatskapelle, and you were here just after the wall came down. I wonder, I mean, it's changed immensely in the last 20 years, hasn't it? I mean, how do you feel it's changed?
It's changed in that well, there's we call them Baustellen, building sites all over Berlin. They've been there for 20 years. They just changed places. And when I first was here, and it was just literally the week the wall was coming down, I was here in Berlin, and I'd gone home 2 days earlier, but I'd missed the whole thing, and I came back a few weeks later. I just thought, what a cool place Berlin is. And that hasn't changed for me. Literally in 20 years, I still find Berlin an incredibly vibrant, exciting city, as I'm sure everybody says on your program, who lives here. It's just a fantastic place to be, especially for artists, especially for the arts. You feel proud to be an artist here. And in other countries, artists tend to be sometimes people that have to work very hard to scrape a living together. And here you're treated very, very well. And I've always appreciated that. And Berlin is just, it's got so many hidden depths.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Mind you, you say that about being appreciated as an artist, and this country subsidises the arts more than any other per capita in the world.
I was trying to phrase it.
Is that necessarily a good thing? Should artists struggle a bit sometimes?
Well, I struggled when I was at college. I think most of us did at music college, you know, trying to do this gig to pay your rent and all the rest of it. And when you're in London, you can't afford to live in town unless you're very rich or have a very good job. So you remember all this travelling time you spend getting in and out of town, that you don't have that here. It was a bit of a struggle in London as a musician. In Berlin, it hasn't been, but you're right. As you say, it's heavily subsidised. And maybe that's because they're very proud of their cultural heritage. And I'm not saying that England isn't. It's just they don't put up the money for it like the Germans
I mean, it's an extraordinary cultural heritage, we all know. Yeah. And we just can reel off classical music composers without it. Apart from the arts, though, I mean, you say you love Berlin so much, and you love the art scene here, but just normal life. What's special about Berlin or Germany?
Normal life. I love to be able to get to work within 10 minutes. Berlin still has this feeling of being a small town, although it's growing and growing. But it's easy to get places. The transport system works. Not sure about the airports, but that's another that's another subject.
Yeah. It's a joke, isn't it, around the world? We won't mention Schönefeld Airport. Sorry.
So that's this whole infrastructure thing just tends to work. It has had its challenges. I'm sure every foreigner here in Berlin or in Germany has known what it's like to stand at the post or at the bank and not be able to speak proper German and be barked at by people that are not really willing to understand. It is quite lonely the first couple of years before you get enough of a Berliner Schnauze, the Berlin accent, to be able to talk back to them.
Berliner Schnauze, we should. That's not just it's not just the accent. They're very sort of in your face.
They are, and
it's an attitude.
If you come from England, where everybody is so polite and don't. Oh, and do you mind if? It's quite a shock to have someone go, "Hey, you know." It's quite a shock, but they don't mean it nastily. You have to understand it.
No, they don't.
And I found at my time at the Staatskapelle, being with all these East Germans, it was wonderful. It was great. And going out to their little dachas on the weekend, they all had wonderful
gardens
and country houses, and they became my family. And
you've
stayed ever since.
You've stayed ever since. Now, well, we've seen Sarah at the zoo. Now we join her in some of her other favourite haunts here in Berlin.
We are at the Café am Neuen See, the cafe at the new lake, it's called here in Berlin. And it's a beautiful place right in the middle of the city. It's like a small oasis for me because lots of friends live near here and you can just call them up and say, hey, let's have a quick drink here at the Café am Neuen See. It's beautiful, it's peaceful, and it's really accessible, which is something very special about Berlin. This is a much better way to do things. Berlin Tiergarten you can compare with Central Park in New York or Hyde Park in London. It's a fabulous place, and for me it's my way to work. I ride my bike through the Tiergarten in all sorts of weather. I've been here through snow, through sleet, through rain, through beautiful sun, and it changes every day. It looks a little bit different, and there are lots of hidden lakes and lots of hidden paths, and it's just so well taken care of. It's once again an oasis in the middle of the city. The Siegessäule Victory Column here in Berlin is a very important landmark for me. I have never walked up to the top, I'm ashamed to say, and I'm hoping we're just about to change that. Long way up. It was actually quite a joke at the beginning, and now we're not even halfway up. I'm exhausted. Wow. It's my very first time up here in the Siegessäule, and I schlepped my horn all the way up here, which is no mean feat. I think that's my sport for the day. It's an absolutely amazing view, and I don't understand why I've been in Berlin for such a long time and I've never been up here before. And look, there's the Philharmonie in the background, my home. So the Tiergarten is not only a beautiful place for nature, it's also very musical, because as you can see here, we have a monument to the three most famous composers, at least for me they are, Beethoven, Mozart and Haydn. And it's an absolutely beautiful monument, and it's quite inspiring when you ride past that every day.
Now, when she's not playing solos in the park or with the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra, Sarah Willis has recorded her own solo CDs, and if you'd like to win a signed copy of one, write to us. The address is insight@dw.de, and just mention you're interested and include your postal address. You could be our lucky winner. Sarah, and this CD, this CD, this one, is classical music.
That's right.
This is a trio.
Typical horn pieces, Brahms and Mozart. The other one is a little bit of a popular tunes from all over the world. It's called Four Corners, and my three colleagues at the Berlin Philharmonic and I got together and got all sorts of friends to arrange different pieces, like Sous le ciel from Paris, Waltzing Matilda from Australia. And they're all on
The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
The Lion Sleeps Tonight. And we don't only play on that one.
Not only Lady Gaga on
Not yet. That'll be our next one. I must get in touch with her to see if she would join in.
I actually heard somebody playing a Lady Gaga number on the accordion on the radio last night. But
I'm sure my colleagues would love it if I started dressing up in her costumes.
Now, you did say earlier that you moved around a lot as a child. Now, you move around a lot as an orchestral musician as well. I mean, this you sent us.
You have found them, all the ones. Yes, that was in the desert in Doha. And that was, I just like animals. And I saw the camel, I had my horn, and my sister said, get on that camel. I look a little bit worried because the camel was just about to sit down. And I was afraid I was going to drop my horn.
and do you like the travel? Do you like, and how do audiences differ in different parts of the world?
I love travelling. If you don't, then you can't be in the Berlin Philharmonic because we're really on the road all the time. We're real ambassadors, and we have a lot of touring. And then when we're not touring and we're playing in Berlin and we have free time, then we go off on small chamber music tours. I've just got back from a week in Argentina, met all sorts of wonderful Argentinian horn players. It is very tiring, but I've always been a global person, I think, because of what my dad did, and we lived in several countries and we're always going off on holidays. I love it. I love travelling. I love meeting people from different countries, and the audiences, they do vary from place to place. For example, in Japan, they'll sit totally quietly and you'll think, oh, they don't like it, because they'll clap very politely, but at the end of the concert, then they'll go really crazy. We did a concert in Beijing where it was so smoggy inside the concert hall, you could hardly see the conductor, but what you could hear was lots of rustling because people had brought their bags and plastic bags and things to eat. So,
smog inside. Yes. Oh, gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. Another picture. Now, and I want to talk about this because you do a lot of work with children. We saw there in the earlier report, you do work with children. And tell us about this. Yeah.
That was a very special moment. We have a big education program at the Berlin Philharmonic, and I don't have children myself, so I doubly enjoy going and working with the children and to see their eyes when they discover an instrument for the first time. Of course, when they see the horn, that's always an impressive. They love the percussion the most because they can make the most noise. The brass instruments they love because they're beautiful. But this little girl here, she was more interested in my garden hose. And
we have one.
We just happen to have
we
one.
Just happen
I prepared
to have one.
earlier.
Straight.
Now, when the kids, I told you that they ask, why do you put your hand up and is that spit that comes out? The other thing they ask is, how long would a horn be if you unraveled it? Because there's a lot of tubing. If you unraveled all the tubing, it would be about 20 feet. But as it is, I tell them it's very, very long. And to explain how much air you need, I put this garden hose. You can hold that. This is about 3 feet.
I think I was going to be doing this holding a hose.
So there you go. You can hold it up really high, and the kids get quite a shock because you can actually get a note out of this. Or you could play. I can't get all the notes because that's what you learned earlier, but that helps them understand how much air you need to get a noise out of the horn. And this little girl, she fell in love with the garden hose. She didn't want to play my horn, she wanted the garden hose.
And could she get a note out of it?
She could.
And it's all to do with the...
It's all to do with the lips. All you have to do, and everyone has to do this at home now, is just vibrate the lips as if there was something on your lips that you want to get rid of. Go on then.
OK, oh, God.
Very good. You could get a note out of the garden hose. Go on then.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Wait a minute.
Not bad.
I think I sound rather like those elephants.
I was just going to say, those elephants might adopt you into their tribe.
and to take this just a little further, here are 4 grown-up people, all members of the Berlin Philharmonic. So I'm not the only idiot.
No.
But
that was on our open day when we were performing for a lot of children.
Can you actually sort of play it between the 4 of you, because obviously you're professional?
Yes,
can you actually get a tune going?
Leopold Mozart wrote a piece for garden hose and string orchestra. So yes, you can. If you have to have them all the same length to get the same the same.
Okay.
It's very complicated. Anyone who wants to know can come back for another.
But that, I have to say, looks just like my garden hose.
Yeah, well,
So,
But the funny thing is when you go to, we do a lot of work in kindergartens, which are a little bit underprivileged, that don't have any relationship to classical music at all, like in Kreuzberg or in Wedding. Sometimes
an area of Berlin.
An area of Berlin, and I just imagine what it's like when these kids go home to maybe their Turkish parents or and who have never heard anything from classical music, say, "Mummy, I played on a garden hose today." They must think, "Well, this Berlin Philharmonic, what is all that about?"
But it's wonderful. And you talk about that, also the Berlin Philharmonic. I mean, there's lots of things go on there. I want to ask you, you're in the forefront of new technology promoting classical music, and you're involved in what is said to be the biggest classical music event ever, the YouTube Orchestra.
YouTube Symphony Orchestra.
I mean,
yes.
30 million clicks, or did they actually watch at the time?
YouTube said that 33 million tuned in live to this event. It was in Sydney, and the thing is, you see what the power is of the internet. This was pushed very cleverly on YouTube and Google. Everybody had heard about the YouTube Symphony Orchestra going on, and I think people were just so... I don't know whether 33 million people watched the whole concert, but they certainly had 33 million clicks. So it was
Eat
really
your heart
cool.
out, the Rolling Stones and U2 and all the rest of you, 33 million.
I'll give them some garden hoses, you never know.
And the Philharmonic itself has a big online presence too, with the digital concert hall. That's different.
That's different. That was the idea of actually one of the members of our orchestra, Olaf Manninger, who suddenly he said he was jogging one day and he came back and said to his wife, "We have to go onto the internet." Because we used to make a lot of CDs, and those days are really more or less over. Nobody's really buying CDs these days, but they're downloading all sorts of things. And Olaf said, "Well, why don't we put all our concerts live on the internet?" And everyone's like, "Okay, well, let's give it a go." And he managed to get the sponsorship of Deutsche Bank, and we've set up a studio that is just for producing our concerts. It's a little bit like Big Brother. We have cameras in the hall, unmanned cameras. So you're sitting doing a concert and you see this camera goes whoop, whoop, and you have to really pay attention and play well. And it's streamed out live on the internet once a week from the Philharmonie. And for me, with my global family, my mother in London, my sister in Doha, my brother in America, they can all come to the concerts live. It's incredible.
And it's actually proving to be a huge success, making the orchestra, I mean, even more popular, isn't it?
It makes us more accessible, and we try and do all sorts of things like we offer backstage interviews, and we musicians interview the guests, artists.
And you do these things called Horn Hangouts.
Horn Hangouts. So that has nothing to do with the digital concert hall. That was just an extension.
But that's another, an extension of your sort of media presence, I should say, yeah.
Well, it's all about... It's not an ego thing. It's really literally because when I was in Sydney and I met all these kids who were taking part in the YouTube Symphony Orchestra, they were so grateful for the digital concert hall. And they said, "You can't imagine how it is for us to sit at home in the Amazon or Ecuador or Taiwan, and we can watch you work, and we learn so much from it." And I just thought, we're in such a privileged bubble here in Berlin. We can go to the opera, we can go to the theatre.
In Germany as well, actually, generally.
Yeah, in general.
Yeah.
And these kids use the internet to learn. And that's what really gave me a kick. I just thought, why shouldn't we get online and give a little bit back of what we are so lucky to experience?
Another bit of technology frightens the life out of me is you're also involved, one of the 8,000 people around the world trying out Google Glass, and you've got that here. We're going to try and get it to work in a minute.
It will work, yeah.
But for those who don't know, what is it? Very basic, basically.
Well, Google Glass is basically a wearable device. It's basically your phone on your face. And as you can see, it's got a little light on, and I've just recorded myself saying that to you. You speak to it, you can say, you turn it on, you say, "OK, Glass, take a picture, smile." Now, that was a fabulous photo. I think everyone should get to see that.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, I'm not so sure. OK, let's find out more about this new technology that it seems is going to arrive in different forms from different companies in the not-so-distant future. I want to quote something you said. My friends in the horn community have been complaining that since I've had glass, they've only seen what I see and don't get to see me anymore. I was touched. No, but isn't that the problem? Not you personally. I can see you're a very outgoing person, but are we going to stop communicating with each other?
That's a very good question. I think that's already started to happen. We're not that we don't communicate with each other, but that this face-to-face doesn't happen. I see it in the breaks of rehearsals. You know, people still have coffee, but a lot of people just sort of look at their phones. That's the first thing they do when they have a moment. At the airport the other day, I noticed everybody was sitting there with a phone.
So what's that good for, then?
So this is good. Basically, this is a wearable phone. It does still look a little bit odd, and especially here in Germany, because I think there's only one other tester here in Germany. People do give you very odd looks. What I'm using it for is I'm just happy to try it out in classical music. I'm happy to try it out when I play the horn. I tried it out in a chamber music concert the other day. I tried it out whilst teaching, and I write about it on a blog. I'm happy just that people are watching the Google Glass videos I'm making who have nothing to do with classical music, and somebody wrote to me, said, "Horn is so cool, I never even knew what it was until I saw your Google Glass video."
As we know, it's not just them, you know, I don't want to keep mentioning the name, there are other companies and stuff doing it, but I mean, I'm just worried about this intrusiveness. I can be sitting in a restaurant, you can be sitting the other side, and you can be filming me, basically.
I have found, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a tester, and it doesn't mean I have to like it, and I found some things I don't like about it. But what I have found is there's nothing I can do secretly, more secretly on this than I can't do on my phone.
Yeah, okay.
I find it a lot easier to do something, you know, like that on my phone. Firstly, because you're wearing it and you can see it, and secondly, you can see there's a light on.
Yeah. And
now the light's off. So secretly, I can't do much. The other thing is you have to speak to the fin, so you have to speak to it. And
so we're going to have people wandering around talking to them. So,
yeah. Well, it's like people with the...
It's the slippery slope.
This is the thing, is I understand the privacy issues with it, but they already started. It's not just because of this. They started a long time ago, and I think there's no stopping it now, so everyone just has to sort of, get used to it.
We've got no privacy issues here, because I come finally, I think, today to our questionnaire that we give to our guests. And
it's not easy to fill that out.
No, it's not easy. We don't make it easy. I should start, I think we'll start with music, because you say memorable German music, and you mentioned Bach, which I think we can have a little bit of Bach now. Lovely. I mean, so beautiful, Bach. And that's enough of that, thank you. And because I want to... You also mention a wonderful band called Seed, but you also mention a German band called Rammstein, and I think this might be a little bit different. And tell us.
Well, the boys in the studio seem to enjoy that just now. It's not exactly, I wouldn't call it exactly my musical taste, but I had the privilege of meeting one of Rammstein, the drummer, Christoph Schneider. He was actually a guest on something I was doing online. He came and cooked with us. I had him, a cookery show for classical musicians, and he came and cooked with Anna Prohaska, a wonderful soprano. So we had the band, we had an operatic soprano and a heavy metal drummer. Well, they're not really heavy metal, that's a long discussion.
Did you cook?
Oh, Anna cooked a chicken soup that kept her healthy while she sings. We're not big cookers. We just get together, and then people like to tell their secrets in the kitchen. It's a great place to do a chat show.
Okay. Right. Now, ingenious German invention. You mentioned MP3s. A lot of people. You've also mentioned, though, the Pfandflaschenrückgabeautomaten.
Do you think anybody knows what that is in English?
How do we say that in English? That's the bottle, giving back the bottles and getting...
Yeah, what do you call it in English, Pfandflasche?
You put them... deposit bottles.
Deposit bottles, where you give back the bottles that are... Yeah, and you get money back.
Green, And if I may say, the one I particularly like, ingenious German invention. This is perhaps an in-joke, so we have to explain it. It says here, Tegel Airport. Tegel Airport is the lovely airport in Berlin that works, isn't it? And they're going to close it when they eventually get Schönefeld to work.
Well, we're hoping that it's going to take a long time before they do that. I know the government is hoping it's going to be very quick, but we love Tegel Airport. It's so close, it's so small, and when you compare it to Heathrow or somewhere, it's such a dream. You check in, you go a few meters, and you're already at the gate. It's fantastic.
OK. Favourite German word? Do you remember what you put?
I do. It's a German word. Do you want to pronounce it first or shall I?
No, I don't think I do, because we tried this before. You're tempting me, aren't you? You know.
Mucksmäuschenstill. It means as quiet as a mouse. I think it's just such a wonderful word. Mucksmäuschenstill. It's a lovely word, don't you think?
Yeah, and they make up words and join them together, don't they?
Yeah,
it's a good example of that. What else have we got? Good German characteristic. Wanting to sit outside as soon as the sun comes out.
It's true, though. Maybe it's the same in every country, but I notice it here that the minute there's a little bit of sun, even in the winter, everyone's out there wrapped up drinking their coffee.
OK. And irritating German characteristic, always waiting for the light to turn green before crossing
the road. I know it's a very good thing for children to wait, and if there were children around, I do agree that one should wait always, but I've stood at traffic lights at the middle of the night with not one car to be seen and been told off because I've gone across while the little man was red. And something the Germans do extremely well, you put reserving sunbeds with their towels on holiday, but you put something else. I did. The sunbed thing, I'm sorry about that. That was really... what did I put? I think you have to remind me. The
pickling gherkins.
Pickling gherkins, because I can't stand cucumbers. I really can't bear cucumbers. But when I came to Germany, there were all these fantastic pickles that they make at a place called Spreewald. It's where south of Berlin, and that's where these pickles come from. And it's just fantastic. And I realised that that's one thing that they do very well. We've got 20 seconds. Are you staying in Germany? Is this home now? It's home because I couldn't imagine playing anywhere apart from the Berlin Philharmonic, which I just love, so I'm staying. Sarah Willis, it's been a joy speaking to you today on Inside Germany. Thanks very much. If you'd like one of Sarah's CDs, or to win one, by the way, there's only a couple to give away, please write to us at insight@dw.de. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being my guest and playing the horn, playing the garden hose. Thank you for playing the garden hose. Yeah, well, I did, didn't I? And we'll have another guest on Inside Germany at the same time next week. Until then, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.